My brother stopped working his normal job about a year ago. No formal announcement. He didn't quit, he just sort of, stopped going. He had a tech support gig at a small defense subcontractor. Pretty easy stuff. Clearance level was low, nothing beyond handling machines on a closed network, and making sure guys had working login credentials. I remember him saying once that the employees weren't even allowed to bring in phones into the server wing. He didn't talk much about what the company, actually did. But he'd been there for 2 years. Good money, decent benefits. He just stopped one day. I came home from my night shift, and his car was already in the driveway, way earlier than usual. He was in the garage, sitting on a folding chair with the lights off, smoking, just staring at nothing. I asked what was going on, and he just said, "I don't work there anymore." That was it. No explanation, really. I asked him if he got fired. He shook his head. "I signed some papers. I'm good." That was all he would say to me. Then came the cash. Within 2 weeks, he paid off every cent of credit card debt, or half of the mortgage, and the balance on his car. Said he sold some stuff and had a savings account he hadn't told anyone about yet. But I never saw him sell a thing. And what kind of savings account produced thick manila envelopes every few weeks, filled to the brim with cash? No bank stamps, no checks, just rubber bands and bills, mostly 20s. I asked him if he was doing something illegal. He smiled and said, "Not technically." I should have pushed more earlier on, but I didn't. He was my brother, and it's easy to ignore things that seem to be working out. But he got different after that. Paranoid, quieter, changed his phone number twice in 1 month. He installed blackout curtains in every single room in the house. He removed all smart devices from the house as well. Replaced all of the smoke detectors by himself. He didn't want any of us to give him a hand. I didn't even realize until later that the new ones had been gutted and were left with no sensors inside. Just hollowed plastic shells. By month 3, he was, running drills. That is the only word I can use to properly describe them. He started getting up at around 3 a.m., not making any noise, but always moving with purpose. I caught him in the backyard once in the middle of the night, doing dry runs, walking the fence line, practicing entry through the back door with the lights off, scanning the windows like he was expecting someone to be watching us. At one point, he asked if I could help him calibrate an RF scanner that he'd picked up off eBay. It looked, military surplus, and he insisted we test it around the perimeter of the house every single night before bed. Claimed he was just being cautious, in case someone tries to sweep us. I didn't even know what that meant. Then one night, I caught him leaving with his rifle bag. He almost made it to the car without me noticing him, but the garage door was loud, and it woke me right up. When I came outside, he was in boots and dark cargo pants, stuffing zip ties, batteries, and water bottles into a tactical backpack. I asked where he was going. He said, "Nowhere, just overnight work." I kept pressing. I told him he looked like he was headed to a raid. He laughed it off, but the tension was obvious. I wasn't supposed to be seeing any of this. Eventually, maybe just to shut me up, he told me it was private security work. He said something like, high-risk asset retrieval. It's all above board, he said. You'd be surprised what kind of stuff people pay to have fetched. I asked if it was legal. He said it's authorized. I told him that's not the same thing. Then he just looked at me and said, "Don't worry, I'm not killing anyone who doesn't need to be killed." And he smiled, like it was a joke, but I didn't laugh. That night he didn't come home until after dawn. He tracked dirt into the kitchen. He didn't speak a word. Just drank water and stood in the dark for a while before taking a shower. His hands were shaking. The next few weeks were more of the same. Long absences, burner phones, cash pickups. He never let me ride with him, never left a note or a schedule. But there were signs that whatever this was, it wasn't just freelance work. His gear changed. First it was simple surplus stuff, but then it got weird. He started storing things in fireproof cases with foreign manufacturer stamps, stuff in Russian and Chinese, a handheld thermal scanner, a compass with no markings, a stack of handwritten notes in blocky perfect letters, printed in red ink on textured paper, the kind you'd find in government files from the 60s. I never dared open any of it fully, not while he was home. Then, One morning, I found him in the backyard, burning something. He didn't know I was awake. I watched through the upstairs window as he fed bundles of documents into a metal barrel. The pages were thick, almost plastic, and some wouldn't ignite unless he sprayed them with accelerant. He stayed out there for over an hour, burning everything down to fine ash, then scattering it into the wind with a rake. That same day, he put a padlock on the basement door. Things really started to ramp up after that. A black sedan started parking near our cul-de-sac, always facing our house, never there during the day. It showed up 3 nights in a row, then disappeared. I confronted him about it. He just said, "That's not for you to worry about." The night after that, I was woken up by the sound of static. Our baby monitor, which hadn't been used in months, clicked on by itself in the hallway. Full blast static, like someone was keying a mic. I found it unplugged, batteries still inside. He said nothing when I showed him, just took it from me and dismantled it right there on the kitchen table in front of me. No reaction, no fear, like he had been expecting it. That was when I started documenting things, just in case, because I started having the same dream every single night. A door that opens somewhere deep underground, the kind that doesn't slam, but instead it slides, and when it does, you can hear something breathing behind it, close, waiting. I never saw what was on the other side in my dream, but my brother always did. He was there in the dream too, standing at the edge of the dark with a weapon drawn, saying nothing to me. And always, just before I woke up, he would turn toward me, just a glance, and he would shake his head and say, "Don't come any closer." He disappeared for 3 days. No warning this time, no text, no gear packed in the garage. One night he was there, making instant ramen and arguing with me about the water bill, and the next morning just nothing. His phone went to voicemail, his car was gone. He didn't even leave a fucking note, that asshole. No emergency contact. I had no way to check if he was alright. I called the hospital, the jail, even one of his old coworkers. Nothing. He came back late on the 4th night, at around 2 a.m. I was still awake, pacing the kitchen. The car headlights cut across the windows, and I jumped up like a dog, waiting at the door. He walked in with a duffel bag and collapsed onto the couch. He didn't say a word to me. He looked like hell. His right eye was bloodshot and swollen, his hands scraped and raw. I asked what happened and he just laughed quietly, like he was the only one in on the joke. "You still writing this stuff down?" he asked. I told him I was. "Good, you might be the only record left." And that's when I realized he wasn't just scared. He was exhausted, not physically but like something deeper. Like whatever he was carrying had been getting heavier every day, and he didn't know how much longer he could hold on to it. The next morning, I found him sitting in the garage, staring at the wall. He dragged a whiteboard out of the basement and covered it with red thread and hand-scribbled notes, most in shorthand I didn't understand. At the center was one single word, circled 3 times, Concordia. When I asked what it meant, he looked at me like I just said a slur out loud in church. "You don't say it out loud," he said, "not if you don't want attention." I asked whose attention. He didn't answer. That night he finally told me the truth, or part of it at least. Not all at once. It took hours for him to get it all out. Some of it didn't make sense. Some I'm still not sure I believe. But it started with a job. He said he was approached near the end of his time at the subcontractor. Quiet contact, no names. Just a guy in a suit who was not supposed to be in the building. Gave him a choice. Stick with tech support, or try something higher clearance. Not quite black budget, but close enough. He didn't even say yes. Not explicitly anyway. But a week later, he got a file folder in the mail. No return address. Inside was a name, a phone number, and a time. From there, it got weirder. The missions, he called them that, were never consistent. Sometimes it was breaking into old hospitals. Sometimes it was retrieval, which could mean anything from military hardware to boxes sealed with wax and wire. Once it was an empty bag. Literally, just a location and a bag. But there were, patterns. Always done at night. Always in places with no civilian access. Always off-grid. And always with other people. People he never saw twice. Never exchanged real names. Sometimes he would drive, sometimes they would pick him up. Unmarked vans, no plates. You never use your personal vehicle. He said that the targets weren't always physical. Once they were told to, neutralize a frequency. No idea what that meant. They found a room full of equipment in an old radio tower. Stuff he said looked too clean to be abandoned. Burned it all. No resistance. Other times it was people. Volunteers, he said. But his face said otherwise. One of the most disturbing things he told me was about an old storage facility outside Roanoke. They were told to open up one of the units, number 19, and ensure that the contents were no longer viable. When they pried it open, the walls were lined with lead sheeting, and the unit was bone dry, temperature controlled. Inside were what looked like sealed oxygen tanks, each labeled with a year and a number string. Were they radioactive? I asked. He paused. Something worse, he said, but they were cold. He said he's never been told what anything is, just what to do. The language is always vague. Stabilize, contain, render inert. But he is never asked, because you don't ask, you don't look, you don't investigate. Once, he did. Just once. A small town in Maryland. No real name, just coordinates. An old water plant that hadn't been used in 20 years. They were told to breach the subbasement and check for activity. That was the word, activity. They found cages, dozens of them, industrial, reinforced, bolted to concrete. Some with claw marks, one with fresh blood, but no signs of anything alive. The cages were empty. They weren't supposed to go in. Just take photos, log it, and leave. But someone in his team, Vic, I think he called him, got way too close. Opened up one of the inner rooms. There was something inside. Not moving. Not even whole, but not normal. He wouldn't describe it to me. Just said, that was the only time I saw one breathe. They left without taking the photos. Burned the room. Claimed it was inaccessible. The next day, Vic was gone. None of the phone numbers worked anymore. Even the van changed. Different guys, different gear. That was when he started pulling back, trying to get out. But apparently, there is no out. A week after that conversation, he started, acting differently. Less paranoid and more focused. He kept his gear packed, cleaned the car out, bought a new burner phone, but he also started including me on things. Little things at first. Teaching me how to reload, how to pick locks, how to hotwire an engine. Stuff I thought he picked up over the years working maintenance gigs or watching YouTube. But now it all clicked. This was training. It was quiet. He disguised it as bonding. He never said the words. Never sat me down and told me what was coming. But he started getting up early again. Started texting me times and addresses to come help with something. Then, one night, around 2:48 a.m., I got the text. Need you tonight. No questions. Dress dark. Bring the shotgun. Don't be late. I stared at the text for a while. I honestly thought about ignoring it, but I didn't. Something in the wording, or maybe the fact that he'd actually never asked me before so directly, made it feel serious. He'd never been so direct with me before. Plus, he's my brother. I wasn't just gonna leave him. When I got to the garage, he was already geared up. Black jacket, gloves, radio in his ear. He handed me a vest, no words, just nodded toward the car. We drove east, out past city limits, into that no man's land where everything turns industrial and empty after 6 p.m. He didn't speak until we turned onto a private access road, and the tires shifted from asphalt to gravel. You'll stay close, he said. You don't go inside unless I tell you to. What is this? I asked. He hesitated. It's a proving job, mine, but they want to see if you're viable. I thought about getting out right then and there, but we were already past the point of no return. He pulled up to an old research park. Half the buildings were gutted. The other half looked like they'd never opened. The kind of place where paper signs still hang from the windows 10 years later. There was another vehicle already there, a black SUV with no plates. Inside it were 2 men, one in the driver's seat, one in the back. When they stepped out, I felt something I hadn't really expected. They looked normal. One looked like a teacher. The other looked like someone's dad. Fleece vest, quiet face, clipboard in hand. That made it worse. Follow, stay close, stay quiet, my brother said. He didn't look at me when he said it. They led us inside for a loading dock. The air was cold and stale, smelled like rotten rust. Way too quiet for my liking. We went down a concrete hallway, through a service door, into a room lit only by work lamps. In the middle was a steel container, waist high, rusted, vents on the side, welded seams. They opened it up. I will never forget the sound that came out. It wasn't loud. It was more like breathing but layered, like something trying to mimic exhaling and getting it wrong. It wasn't an animal, or if it wasn't one I'd ever seen before. Limbs where they shouldn't be limbs. Black, insect-like folds where skin should be. It didn't move like anything natural. I froze. My brother didn't. He stepped forward, pulled a device from his jacket, like a cattle prod, but heavier, touched it to the edge of the container. The thing inside hissed, but didn't attack, like it recognized the tool. One of the men spoke for the first time. 3 seconds of exposure, that's all we need. Document behavior, reaction time, response to third-party presence. He looked at me when he said it. And that's when I understood. I was the third party. I was fucking bait. They wanted to see if it would react differently with me there, with a variable. I wanted to back out, say no and walk away, but something locked me in place. My brother didn't even look at me. He activated the prod. The thing inside screamed. It just sounded wrong, like it wasn't coming from its mouth, but somewhere deeper in its body. It reached for the edge of the container, fast, way too fast. The man next to me pressed something on his phone, and a current ran through the container walls. The thing collapsed, twitching. I looked at my brother, but he didn't flinch. He just nodded once and stepped back. 3 seconds, the man said. Controlled response, no breach. He scribbled something down. We left the room. The container was resealed. On the way out, they handed my brother a folder. Black, sealed, unmarked. He didn't open it until we were back in the car. Inside, one Polaroid. A photo of me, taken from across the street. My face blurred, timestamp in the corner. And a note. Conditionally cleared. Monitor proximity. Do not initiate until confirmation. He read it and said nothing. Just folded it back up and slipped it into the glove compartment. Who the hell are these people? I finally asked. He shook his head. You will know when they want you to, he said. That was 2 months ago now. I've been out with him a few times since then, but nothing as major as that. Hey, I hope you've enjoyed the story so far. If you do and you want to hear more, please leave a like and subscribe to my channel, and leave a comment down below, as it lets the algorithm know that you like my content and it promotes it to more people. My goal for the channel is to hit 50,000 subscribers, and we're closing in fast, so thank you, and back to the stories. I'm not a sailor, but I did experience a unique phenomenon while at the beach. When I was in my 20s, I had gone to the beach with my boyfriend, and we ended up having a fight. It was late, and I walked to the beach to clear my head. I had no interest in actually going in the water. I actually do not like swimming at all, and will typically avoid the cold, unpredictable ocean water. Now, I have never been suicidal or engaged in any self-harm behaviors, but instantly, being near that water made me want to go into it. Not just in it though, I wanted to disappear in it. I don't know how to describe to you my thoughts, but I had to actively stop myself from impulsively going into the water. It was like it was calling to me, demanding I get in, like someone was communicating to me through my thoughts. I eventually left, but that feeling continued to bother me enough that I actually Googled this. To my surprise, many people have encountered this urge to go into the ocean. It's described as like a voice calling to you, a phenomenon referred to as the call of the void. L'appel du vide. I felt it on the top deck of a ferry, 3 a.m. on the Irish Sea. There is no rationale, you just get the urge to go. That gives me fucking chills. The morbid part of my mind goes to all those completely inexplicable suicides, where relatives and friends swear that the person had zero intention or reason or inclination to do what they did. Maybe they heard the call and for whatever reason at that moment, didn't or couldn't resist. I used to live in a city with a ferry port. Thankfully, while not common, as often as maybe every 2 or 3 years, someone would go missing overboard on a night passage. Again, inexplicable, but reading what you say, I can't help but wonder. It's said that the call of the void is your mind playing out the worst case scenario as part of your flight, fight, freeze response. You are basically identifying what terrible options you may have and how awful it might be, which can sometimes put it on your radar as the thing you may do, although you don't. It's also common for folks with OCD or other similarly intrusive thought diagnoses. Some get it while driving. What if I decided to floor it and not use the brakes in traffic kind of thing? Wow. I've heard that Niagara Falls is also known to beckon people to jump into the waterfall. I've never been there, but I can just imagine, like a magnetic pole of all of that rushing water. So glad you didn't jump into the ocean that night. The sharks might have got you. I remember a distinct memory from my childhood that caused my ass to get beat. When my mom was dropping me off at school, I saw a motorized tricycle, and from the Philippines, and my immediate thought was, does it hurt? And without noticing what happened after that thought, my mom had pushed me out of the way because the tricycle was going to hit me. I ran in front and close to the tricycle real fast because I wanted to know what death felt like, and she tackled my ass so I didn't get hit. That's a core memory for me because something was just like, jump in front of it, and it is as if I wanted to do it, but I just did it. So of course I got my ass beat. I was about 5 then, and I'm turning 33 this year. I still think about that, and that is one of the cool memories of my childhood. I still find it chilling and eerie. This happened to my mom. I'm not the best writer, but I will try my best. Be my mom. Christmas 1992. Grandparents' house. In the basement. I wasn't born yet, but my older sister was born at the time. Yes, she had my older sister when she was 17. Her and her sister decide to prank her husband. He is in the bathroom upstairs. Decide to call him and scream through the phone. Call. He picks up. Scream through phone. Only hear moans of agony on the line. Hear same scream through the phone but louder. Call again. Hear a young girl in the background crying. Hang up immediately. Decide to go up and check on him. He is in the bathroom pulling up his pants, going to check on them. Ask if he heard anything. He says that he heard a little girl sobbing. The second time, he apparently heard what sounded like an old man threaten to assault everyone in the house. Names my older sister and says to leave our house if Dad sees a black Cadillac parked nearby to leave for the day. He thought it was my grandfather, mother's side at first, but the guy did not have the Irish accent. Tell family and everyone is freaked out. Uncle and grandfather watch the windows to see if anyone approaches the house. One guy shows up, but leaves after staring at my uncle for 2 minutes. The next day, receive another call. Same guy. I'm warning you. You better leave when you see my car, or your daughter will be dead. Another call. I hope you take my advice if you don't want your wife on a meat hook. For you and my mom's name's sake, leave before we come. Dad looks outside and sees a black Cadillac parked down the street. Gets the family dog, my mom, and my older sister into the car and speeds off. They get back after about 8 hours. House was set on fire. Windows broken. Fire department saved most of the first floor, but the second floor was gone. July 2000. After school counselor essayed my 2 older sisters. Phone call. It's the same guy. Guy names me and my older adopted sister. We'd moved at this point, and our phone number was obviously changed. He said, if you don't want your daughter assaulted again, then you will leave the city. Moved to father's birthplace, the town we currently live in. No calls happened again. No one has gotten a call from him since 2000, and thankfully, he has not bothered my fiancé and me. A few years back, maybe around 2018 in northern Canada, I used to like to explore abandoned buildings with some of my friends. We never did anything malicious or took anything. We just liked looking around and taking pictures. We had done this dozens of times, and even though it was often at night, we were rarely spooked by anything. Fast forward to us, deciding to explore an old abandoned military residence. It was mostly just apartment rooms, but there were also some recreational areas, like an indoor basketball court. While you were looking around this court, we decided to look in the change rooms/bathrooms. You never know where you might find a cool photo op. Anyway, we went in the women's one first, and there was nothing out of the ordinary, aside from one of the mirrors being broken. After this, we decided we might as well check out the men's room as well. As we began to approach the door to the men's room, it was at this moment when I got that gut feeling that was telling me that something was wrong. I hadn't felt even the slightest bit of concern up until this point, and now I was extremely on edge. I really didn't want to seem scared and spook the others, so I decided to ignore it for now. When I opened up the door, I was immediately hit by a foul smell, as you sometimes come across in these places. But something I wasn't expecting was the extreme humidity in the room, almost as if someone had just taken a shower. There were no showers in the women's room, and not even any running water, from what I could tell. As we got to the center of the room, it was at this moment the feeling that something was wrong started becoming overwhelming. So I turned to my friends and said with a slight voice crack, "Did you want to just go?" I could tell in this moment that they were feeling the same feeling as me, based on the looks on their faces. At that exact moment I finished saying that, an extremely large figure burst out from one of the stalls and started running towards us. I'm fairly tall, standing at about 6'4", but this thing was much taller than me. This figure was covered basically head to toe in garbage bags, to the point of where I'm not even sure how they were able to see, let alone run. It didn't seem to run as you'd expect a person running on two legs would look. It just kind of moved sporadically. We began sprinting out of the room, trying not to slip on the tile floor, due to the water from all the humidity. Thankfully, once outside the room, it was just a straight shot across the basketball court to the other side where there was an exit door. The entire time we were running, I could hear this figure giving chase right behind us, as all the garbage bags that they were wearing were making so much noise. Once outside, we immediately ran to our car and floated out of there. Not many words were spoken on the drive home, as I think we were having trouble coming to terms with what exactly we had just experienced. As crazy as this may sound, I was so bothered by what happened that I wanted to return to the building in hopes of maybe getting some closure for myself. Unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, there were now always one or two civilian cars parked near the building, with security inside, threatening us with arrest if we got any closer. We visited a few more times to see if we could find a time without the security, but they remained there until the building was ultimately demolished around 2 months after that event. I'm a cop now, and I have more creepy stories. I'll share one now. Get called to a burglary in progress. 12-year-old had called 911, saying someone broke in upstairs. Show up with one other unit and a K9. 12-year-old is outside. Says he saw a shadow in the upstairs window. Go in, guns drawn. Hear thuds coming from upstairs. Make ourselves known. Give K9 commands. K9 officer sends his dog in, but the dog does not pick up on anything. He's extremely confused because the dog should be going ballistic at this point. He recalls the dog. Myself and other officer go up. Clear the whole house. Nothing. We're all pretty confused. We even checked the attic and the crawl space and found nothing. Wait for the 12-year-old's parents to come home. They apparently moved in 2 weeks ago. Leave and look up house. 2 people died at the same time in same place due to overdosing. It was the room where we heard the thuds coming from, and where the kids saw the shadows. Yeah, that was a weird call. I know a couple of cops who've seen ghosts. One guy still won't go back to the old Navy base, abandoned for over 20 years now, near here, because he once saw and heard a soldier's ghost out there in one of the 19th century buildings. This was years after the base had been closed, and late at night, so they did not suspect an official visitor, and there are no formal caretakers, never were. Only a couple of areas where the Navy occasionally does some work, cleaning up PCBs and shit like that. They were supposed to have finished ages ago, but they had been dragging their feet forever. My friend and his partner both saw the figure of a man, a figure backlighted in the window of an unoccupied old brick building. They were out patrolling because there are still residential neighborhoods on the decommissioned base with tenants and ordinary people living there. These areas are fairly close to whole spooky blocks of empty, slowly deteriorating buildings, but because there have long been rumors of haunted happenings, and because the old base is on an island and thus isolated from the nearest town by water for a long time, the buildings remained unvandalized, and trespassers and graffiti, etc. were actually rare. So, the officers went closer and investigated, but found no doors or windows open at all, and the lights and the figure they'd seen from half a block or so away vanished. They'd heard sounds, as if the guy was talking to himself, but when they got closer, there was only silence. Maybe there was a subterranean entrance, but the water table is really high out there, so doubtful. My buddy said they examined every door and window, and the accumulated dust and crap was undisturbed. The padlocks on the door were rusty, and looked like nobody had opened them in years. The building stood off by itself in a field of gravel, which had once been a proper parking lot. There were no trees or smaller buildings from which you could have gotten onto or off even. Cop here again. I'll post another kind of long story. Working midnight shift. City is quiet. Decide to take a drive through a dilapidated cemetery / dealer hideout. See a person walk into a mausoleum. Think it's strange, because I didn't hear any doors move or close or anything, and the mausoleum had heavy rusted metal doors on it. Call out to dispatch that I will be going out with one in the cemetery. Get out of my cruiser, turn on my radio, and walk up to the mausoleum and look inside. It's a one-room mausoleum. Doesn't appear to be any place to hide. Attempt to open the door. It's locked. Suddenly get an overwhelming sense of dread. Beat feet back to the car. As soon as I get near my cruiser, I hear multiple units heading towards my location, and dispatch is screaming for me to respond over the radio. Apparently, my radio keyed up, but there was nothing but static coming from my end. I know I didn't press the transmit button on my radio, and I should have heard transmissions coming in, since I was still in open air, and not in closed spaces.